Yo, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning into another BiS list. Today, we're talking about Resto Shaman in Phase 2. Surprisingly, this one was requested by a lot of my community, and maybe it's because I still have some Heal Hands fans out there still tuning in to see what Resto Shaman BiS lists are going to look like in the next phase. So I'm here to talk to you about that because I think my BiS list is slightly different than maybe other BiS lists that you might see. I'm here to explain why, and I'm here to talk about each individual piece, just kind of let you know like where you're gonna get it, which pieces are contested, and just so on and so forth. So without any further delay, let's jump right into it. Let me hide my cam, and just like always, first things first, like we do with every BiS list, we're gonna first jump into the talents. Talents here are a little bit different than the last time you've seen them on my channel, and they're a little bit different than what you may see on a normal Resto Shaman setup. Of course, talents are, of course, very flexible with Resto Shaman in case you need to focus more on tank healing, or if you can greed in a certain area because someone might be already bringing enhancing totems or guardian totems, things like that. This setup is what I recommend. It's kind of a good staple setup. And of course, glyphs are very interchangeable for Resto Shaman. There is a plethora of choices for glyphs for Resto Shaman, depending on your encounter, depending on your raid, and depending on what your role is as your healer and your healing comp. So keep all those things in mind, and let's go look at the gear, because that's what y'all are here for. Now, we obviously are going for the 4-piece tier 8 in phase 2, and that is kind of the biggest thing here. Is the first thing that jumps off the board to me is where are we getting our 4-piece and what's our off-piece. So as you can see, we're going for head, shoulders, gloves, and legs. Now the reason we go for these 4 is because we're actually going to get the most amount of haste, or really just the most value out of this off-piece here, rather than in other places. And I'll tell you about the other places when we get to them. Thankfully, head is actually very obtainable, as it not only drops from Thorum, but you can get this from emblems. So super easy head here. Next up is neck. This actually drops off of XT hard mode, so could be a pretty challenging hard mode for your guild, although I don't imagine it to maybe quite stay in its current state. I'd imagine there might be some nerfs, or maybe just gear is just going to make this boss fall over. We'll have to wait and see. As for alternatives, you definitely have a couple options. This one from 10-man Thorum hard mode, which is pretty easy, is a very good alternative. So definitely keep those in mind. Your shoulders are going to be coming off of Yogg in 25. About your tier and where it's contested, you actually don't have too much contention on your tier. The other classes that are going to want them are for sure going to be your enhancement shaman, which will probably be prioritized over any class for tier, as well as warriors are very interested in obtaining their tier as well. And so after that, you should be able to soak up your 4-piece really quickly, because you're probably going to gain more from your 4-piece than a warrior might on their 4-piece. Reducing the cast time of chain heal by 0.2 seconds is ridiculously strong, and we definitely want to optimize by our raid comp by getting that to our Resto Shaman as soon as we can, assuming we are using a Resto Shaman on a very, very, very regular basis. As for cloak, we have a couple options here. I really like Pennant Cloak. This is going to remain your BiS from phase 1. However, there are a couple alternatives now that the eye level of Pennant Cloak has now been a little bit contested. So one cloak in particular is Drapo the Sullen Goddess. Really, really, really strong cloak here. Hell, between Pennant Cloak and Drape, you could basically toss it up. The two are almost equal in terms of how good they are in Resto Shaman. If you're able to obtain this one, great. The only other people who really would be contesting you on Drape would probably just be your Disc Priests and maybe Holy Paladins. Another option that I would recommend keeping your eye out for is Shroud of Alteration. Now, assuming you're going into Ulduar without Pennant Cloak because you probably were very low prio on Pennant Cloak, Shroud of Alteration is a massive, massive, massive jump from where you probably have Shroud of Luminosity. It is a no-brainer spell power haste MP5 cloak that goes to healers, and it drops off of trash in 25-man. So hopefully you're lucky enough to see multiple of these drop in your guild pretty early on, because you'll probably be rocking this cloak for the majority of phase 2, assuming you don't have Pennant Cloak. So this is a phenomenal cloak. Definitely get your hands on it. This one will last you a very, very, very long time. As for chest pieces, we actually have a lot of chest pieces to look at here. because your best in slot is most likely going to be this XT hard mode coming from 10 man. Super easy to obtain, no brainer, straight up a Resto Shaman item. You're just going to get this as soon as it drops. I know that it's very good on Holy Paladin, of course, but hopefully they're not going to contest you on this because it is male. However, another good choice is coming from Yogg-Saron 25, Chest Guard of the Fallen God, essentially the same stats, only one socket instead of two. This chest guard is ridiculously good. Also, you can get this from just doing Yogg 25 normal. And another really good chest is Robes of the Umbral Brute. This comes off Kolagarn in 25. This chest has the most available haste out of any chest piece in the market. So this chest piece is ridiculously good. Definitely want to try to get your hands on this one if you can, and you may as well consider this one BiS, or this one BiS, or this one BiS. All three of these chest pieces are insanely close in value. And sure, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, I think the Breastplate of the Stone Shaper is the best option of the three, although all three of these options are fucking phenomenal for Resto Shaman, and you wouldn't be wrong picking any one of the three. Of course, Bindings of the Winter Gale are going to be your best in slot. Risk come from Hodier Hard Mode in 25. The only other people who are really contesting you for this are Enhance, Elishams, and probably your Holy Paladins, and that's basically it. Just the usual contestants for Elisham, or for Resto Shaman stuff. Now, about weapon, obviously, our best in slot is Valinor, of course. But if I put Valinor on this list, nobody's going to learn anything from that. There's nothing new about putting Valinor on a healer BiS list in Phase 2. A big whoop. No one's surprised there. It's a ridiculously good weapon for Resto Shaman, of course. But your next best option is probably going to have to be Constellus. Even though there's no haste on Constellus, just the pure eye level upgrade and the spell power upgrade is just actually kind of too good to ignore. Thankfully, Constellus drops off of not only Algalon, but also Hodier, so hopefully you're able to get this, as it does have a shared loot table, which is pretty rare in Ulduar, so hopefully you can get Constellus. It's slightly contested, actually. I know a lot of casters are going to want it, especially your Disc Priests, as well as a couple other casters. So if you need to have a backup option, the next couple best are going to be Asuga, which is obtainable from 10-man General Vezak's hard mode. So should be pretty easy to farm Vezak's hard mode for you on a weekly basis and obtain Asuga, hopefully. This is also a very good weapon for your off-spec Enhance if you wanted to, you know, blast little Enhance. And even Guiding Star is actually pretty decent. The stats on this are basically equivalent to something like a Torch, just a higher eye level. This drops off of Razor Scale and 25-man old, so pretty easy haste MP5 weapon you could pick up here. Like I was saying, gloves is what I like to use as my tier slot here because I'm rocking 4-piece. However, I know multiple other BiS lists like to use Pharaoh gloves as your off-piece for Phase 2. The thing about Pharaoh's gloves is you actually only gain a good chunk of haste, but you don't gain like an insane amount of value of haste because you're replacing a haste item with a haste item. The jump up is kind of capped at essentially, 41 haste, when you can actually gain something ridiculous like upwards of 80 from your chest piece by swapping it out. So the haste value is actually way higher by using a different item slot as your off piece than gloves. And mostly the biggest reason why we don't go Pharaoh's gloves here is because this is really contested. Insanely contested. And to think that you could actually get Pharaoh's gloves in your Resto Shaman, knowing that it drops off of Algalon and this is most casters' BiS piece, is actually insanely cooked. You are highly unlikely to obtain Pharaoh's gloves. Just pretend that they don't exist and move on with your life and go with the Conch gloves. These drop off of Memoron. Hopefully you're able to obtain these either from Memoron or just from VOA. Best of luck to you there. As for belt, we do have a couple options. I do want to give a big shout out to Razor Scale, as this belt is a pretty substantial upgrade from our Phase 1 belt and will be used for a very long time, because our next best is actually Star Beaded Clutch, which is a leather spirit item. Drops off of Algalon 25-man. So pretty hard to obtain this one because it drops off of Algalon, and kind of weird to obtain too, as it's going to be slightly contested. seeing as it's a leather spell power item. There isn't a whole lot of contention on this item, so hopefully you're able to obtain it after a couple weeks of farming Algalon. But this is definitely going to be your best choice when you can obtain it. Until then, I would just recommend rocking Belt of the Fallen Worm off of Razor Scale. Of course, we have Skill with Legs, complete our 4-piece, no weird items here. All the legs kind of suck. Even the next best on our legs would be like this hit leg from Freya hard mode, so there's nothing good here. We definitely want to go with these legs off of Freya, the tier legs. Boots, there's actually quite a bit of options on boots, and I know that Treads of the False Oracle is kind of a weird one because this is, again, extremely contested. But seeing as it's a boot slot and not a glove slot where we would be changing our 4-piece tier, I feel like this one is actually kind of a logical one to leave in a BiS list to actually, you know, maybe hope for and dream for of one day obtaining Treads of the False Oracle. This is definitely going to be your best in slot for your boots. Although pretty unrealistic, I think your next best is most likely just going to have to be Planewalker Treads. These are male boots that drop off Algalon 252 eye level. There's no haste on these, but unfortunately there's not really any other good option. The next best is going to be these boots that drop off of General Vezax and 25 man. These are the most realistic option boots that you'll probably run until you get Planewalkers or Treads, and even these two are kind of unlikely unless your guild is regularly killing Algalon. So don't be surprised being a Resto Shaman rocking boots of the Forgotten Depths going into TOGC phase, if that happens to be the case. There's nothing wrong with that. Just pray that you can get something a little bit better like these two. We do have some flexibility on our rings. Definitely our best in slot ring is going to be the 252 ring coming from the Algalon quest item. Like, a little unlikely that we're going to obtain this one, although the Star Shine Signet, just the lower eye level version, is a phenomenal choice for us, which we definitely would hope to obtain eventually. And our next best ring is going to be Nebula Band. This comes from 10-man Algalon. This is a very contested ring for sure, and of course the quest item is very contested as well. But it is pretty realistic to think that one day you should be able to obtain Nebula Band, assuming you're running Old 10 on a weekly basis with a competent group that's killing Algalon 10-man on a regular basis. A couple other rings to consider, though, at least, is the 10-man Freya hard mode Fire Orchid Signet is very good. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't have any shame rocking this going into Phase 3. Is a very good ring if you wanted to rock this, plus the 10-man version, Starshine Signet. Additionally, Pyrelite Circle coming from Ignis is a really good ring, but a little too contested for my taste. I know a lot of casters would love to use this as it's a direct upgrade from Signet of Manifest Pain from KT. Speaking of which, Signet and as well as the Kirin Tor rings are very good options for you moving into Phase 2 if you can get your hands on them. The Kirin Tor ring is going to be really solid. If you have the gold, just dump it on this ring. This will last you for a really long time until you replace it with these other rings that we mentioned. As for trinkets, Show of Faith is without doubt your best in slot ring. Trinket, this comes from Yogg-Saron hard mode, 25 man. You know, pretty much a straight up healer trinket, nothing to see here. Pretty straightforward stuff. And then Sif's Remembrance is basically the exact same item, just lower eye level. And we really like Sif's Remembrance as our second trinket as well. I will give a couple shout outs here though. A couple other BiS might say something like Scale of Fates as your best in slot trinket. I don't hate Scale of Fates. I really don't. I don't have anything against it either. The weird thing about Scale of Fates is it's actually a very contested caster item, so I don't love going for it as a healer. Secondly, you'd have to make very good use out of the on-use effect to get good value out of Scale of Fates as a healer. I know that Sif's Remembrance, the MP5 proc, is just kind of no-brainer, easy pump value. This actually plays really well into our high heavy haste build, which just makes a lot of sense. And even speaking of which, Soul Preserver is still a very good trinket for us in this phase. So if you wanted to rock Soul Preserver for a while until you were able to obtain these other two trinkets, go for it. And that's basically it for healer trinkets. And then of course our totem does move up to the new eye level totem, the Steam Colors totem. This drops off the Flame of Leviathan, and hopefully you should be able to obtain this from emblems as well. I may have jumped over this shield. Actually, the shield is going to be the best in slot shield from Thorim hard mode 25. Another good option, of course, coming from old 10 Hodier hard mode is going to be the ice layered barrier. These two are very, very good, and I'd rock those. And that's basically it. I'm going to try to wrap this video up here. If you guys have any questions about Resto Shaman BiS, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions about Resto Shaman optimizations for Phase 2, you're welcome to join my Discord. Ask me there. I'm happy to try to answer as many as I possibly can. Although do keep in mind that I actually don't main Resto Shaman. I'm mostly collecting this BiS list information based on my prior experience playing Resto Shaman over the years and now current meta developments on Resto Shaman. I hope that you find this video helpful and useful for you as you develop your BiS list and make your decisions for your guild. And keep in mind that healer BiS lists are dependent on your guild. You might not be able to obtain some of these items that I listed here. You might be prioed for Valinir, for example, and if that's the case, this BiS list might change a bit for you. And maybe you want to gem for spell power gems because you think that you're able to manage your mana a little bit better with spell power gems. You know what? So be it. That's great. I'm going to leave this BiS list as it is, as I am a big proprietor and big fan of the haste stacking meta, as this build will get you all the way up to 992 unbuffed haste, which is phenomenal value. Best of luck out there to you Resto Shaman guys. This is a really good phase for Resto Shamans, as they're very, very good, especially on a fight like Algalon, and this tier set bonus is fucking ridiculous. So, cheers guys.